Good evening and welcome to the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids pregame show on this beautiful Friday night. The Edmonton Blizzard are in town to take on the hometown Grand Falls Rapids in the homecoming of former Rapids Jeremy Dastu and Raphael Denis. And I just have to say this is going to be a very interesting game, and not for the reasons that you might think with those two returning, but this is the first home game with this new look Rapids lineup. So we're going to get into everything that comes with it, talking a little bit about what these players have done so far, how they've looked, as well as the recent struggles, which we're going to dissect as well. So keep with us for the entirety of the episode, and we are going to talk about all that and more here on the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids pregame show. So first off, I want to just acknowledge this. You know it's a rivalry game. You know what you're getting. There's no fancy, superstitious breakdowns of the game, this upcoming game. It's plain and simple. I mean, it's like we've seen all year when these two teams face off against each other. You know it's going to be a high-scoring game. You know it's going to be very physical. You know there's going to be a lot of dominance from which side. It remains to be seen. But we will see very shortly. We're going to get into the stats breakdown first. So obviously the Rapids, we'll go with them first. The Rapids are 9-21-5 on the season, 123 goals for, 155 goals against, and we'll talk about why the goal differential is going to be so important after as well. Their power play percentage, 17.2. They are 6th place in the East Link North Division. Their penalty kill also struggling as well, 74.8%, 5th in the North. And they are 2nd in the North with shorthanded goals against with 7. So you think about that for a minute and how many shorthanded goals they have let up. That's going to be a key factor in that as well. For the Edmonton Blizzard, 29-6-1-1. They have 164 goals against, or 164 goals for, rather, 107 goals against. Their power play percentage, 3rd in the East Link North Division with 21.1%, and their penalty kill, 4th in the East Link North Division at 80.3%. Now, I wanted to acknowledge this. I talked about the goal differential and why that's so important. Now, it may not seem likely at the moment, but let's just say that the Rapids somehow end up winning the next few games in a row and they are in contention for the playoffs. One of the big things is going to be their goal differential. If in the event that there's a tie with Miramichi or Campbellton or anything like that, if the Rapids do decide, or if the Rapids do end up coming back and reclaiming that playoff spot, the goal differential could be a deciding factor in the tie. So they want to get that goal differential up as much as you possibly can, but as of right now, it's not a huge factor, but we'll see if that changes later on in the season. I mean, they still have 16 games left to go after tonight, which is, quite a bit of points that are still on the table. Nothing's impossible until it is. And that's why I have 100% kept this same opinion that no matter what, never ever give up on these guys, because time and time again, they've proven you wrong and they will do it again. So what we're expecting for this game means absolutely nothing for the Edmonton Blizzard except for bragging rights, of course. The Blizzard have already clinched a playoff spot. We saw that earlier in the week. They are now first. They were the first team this season to clinch a playoff spot, and will pull ahead as well. They're 14 points ahead of the West Kent Steamers. So again, for them, it's just another game. For the Grand Falls Rapids, this means everything. They're 19 points behind the Miramichi Timberwolves out of the playoffs. They're looking to shrink that gap down a little bit, and this is a game that they really want to win to be able to do that. And it's also, as we know, the rivalry and how important it is to win these games if you're either side. So that's another huge thing. Like I mentioned, this game is going to be very ugly. It's not going to be a very tame game, so if you're expecting this, it's just going to be very laid back. You definitely have not watched any of the Edmonton Grand Falls games. This one, I would expect, is going to be a very high-scoring game for one team or another. The physicality is going to ramp up, and there's going to be penalties, and we were going to be calling all the action as well. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I know it's if you didn't see my trade deadline recap video, you can check it out on the Rapids Rappy YouTube channel. The other thing was the return of two former Rapids players in Jeremy Dastu and Raphael Denis, both traded at the trade deadline or prior to the trade deadline just last week. They are making their return for the first time since being traded, and I know a lot of people are really nervous about how they're going to play against the Rapids, but here's the thing, though, too, is that you can't really let that dictate how the game's going to go. Yes, they were playing, in Denis' case, he was playing for the Rapids for the last few years. For Dastu's case, he was playing since the beginning of the season, but you can't really let that factor determine how this game is going to go in your favor. With that being said, we'll run through how these guys have stacked up and what their impacts have been on this team. Raphael Denis, obviously, we talked about this in the trade recap video, 73 games played in a Rapids uniform, 61 points. So he only ended up going without 12 points, or only ended up going 12 games without a point in his Rapids history. That brings him to the second highest scoring defenseman in Rapids franchise history. Right behind Matthew McKay, of course, one of our great captains. And the other thing, or the other side of that, is Jeremy Dastu, who played 27 games in a Rapids uniform since the beginning of the season, 51 points, and just to give you an idea of how crazy the all-time scoring lead is, he ranks 10th in Rapid scoring all-time. So that's how much of a huge impact that these guys have made in their short times here. Now, both players are definitely looking to get back on the score sheet, but if I were the Rapids, I would not let that affect you too much, because you know what they're capable of, you know how to shut them down. It's just a matter of getting them into the zone where you can shut them down, making sure that they're not going to cause too many impressive plays, or even on the power play, penalty kill, doesn't really matter, just shutting down the entire team. See, people seem to think that this is a way to just shut those two down, but you look at it from a broader spectrum, right? Is yes, they are returning, and yes, they are players who know this team inside and out, but you still should treat this game like it's every other game. Not just focus on those two players, but focus on the entire team and shutting them down. That's what's really going to help them win this game. Keys to the game: get under their skin and draw some penalties. We all know that these two teams are no strangers to each other. There is going to be a lot of penalties here, but for the Rapids, I think it's going to be used to their best advantage. They have some guys there that can draw some penalties, and yes, it is an art to drawing penalties. We know that the Blizzard can get physical at times. It's all about using that to your advantage. So getting under their skin, drawing penalties, that's going to be the first key to the game. Exploit their goaltending. Now, it's no secret that Edmonton also in the last couple of months has been struggling. They've been through 4 goaltenders in the last 3 months. And that's something that's really important to this matchup as well, because this is unlike the Blizzard to do. They've obviously had a lot of solid goaltenders. In the beginning of the season, Simon Boucher, and eventually when they got Freddie Cousineau from Truro, he played well the first couple of games, but now they've really been struggling up until that point. There's no real easy way for them to manage that situation. So take advantage of the fact that their goaltenders have been struggling, get that first goal, strike early, and make sure that you keep peppering shots on goal, because the sooner that those goaltenders face those shots, the sooner you knock them off balance and get into their heads. So the other key to the game is win one period at a time. My dad always stresses this every single time. You got to win it minute by minute, draw by draw, shot by shot. Don't think about the long-term outcome of the game. Think about it in that moment. That's what you've got to do, because the more that you do, the more that you think about it in the long-term aspect, it's going to throw your entire game plan off balance. So win it minute by minute. That is what you need to do. We know that this is going to be a heavy game. It's not going to be easy. The next few games are not going to be easy, so we'll talk about that as well. But this is a starting point, and the Rapids could do something really big here against the Blizzard. We mentioned that their goaltending has struggled. We mentioned that there is a lot of penalties being thrown around on both sides. This is just going to be another one of those games. All right, the look ahead. So the Truro Bearcats are in town on Sunday afternoon to face off against the Grand Falls Rapids, and this is going to be another opportunity for the Rapids to get some revenge. They were shelled that first game after the trade deadline, or second game after the trade deadline during their Nova Scotia road trip with Pictou County and Truro, of course. So they're going to be looking to get back on top as well. But again, this is going to start a string of games that are going to be very difficult. So it's going to be Truro, and then the next 3 games after that, West Kent, Campbellton, and Edmundston. 2 of those are division rival games. Or sorry, all 3 of them are division rival games. One of those teams is a team that the Rapids are looking to catch. So they want to win that as well. There has been a little bit of criticism, and I have been paying attention to the town and what people have been saying here and there, is that there's a little bit of worry, right? That this Rapids team, they're not sure what to think after the trade deadline. But here's what I think. If I'm going to give my perspective here, my 2 cents. You think about it this way. The games that they had in Nova Scotia and against Fredericton, those were games that were very close to the trade deadline and very close to when these players were acquired. So they didn't really have a whole lot of time to practice or to get acquainted with each other. And that's something that really didn't help them in that respect. So they were still trying to build up that chemistry. Yes, it was 3 games, but sometimes it takes 4 or 5 games for them to get acclimated with each other. That's something that, don't stress. I know that there's quite a few people who are being pessimistic and saying that, this Rapids team, blah, 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 blah. Let them gel. We've been saying this all year. Look at what happens when they build up that chemistry. We saw that with Dastu and Laird. We saw that with the defense. We saw that with so many players this season. Once they built up that chemistry, they were inseparable, unstoppable, unbelievable. They've had a couple of really good practices this week, so it should be that they're building up that chemistry a little bit more. And it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. But they have, in the month of February, they've only got 2 away games. So there's 9 games total. They've got 7 home games, 2 away games. That's what's going to be a key factor here as well, because they have a chance to go on a bit of a win streak on home ice. We've seen that they are not the greatest on the road this year, but at the same time, having that hometown crowd to cheer them on is really going to give them a little bit of extra motivation. So doesn't matter what you're doing, get your tickets, go to the game. This is going to be an incredible month, February. 9 games, 7 of them home games, 2 away games. It's going to be fun, and you're going to want to be here for when they go on that run. Now we're going to move into the weekly Rapids Heat Index, and none other than Jonah Lear, the captain, number 21, is our player of the week this week. Had a goal and 2 assists, and they were just incredible plays in those couple of games. Now, we've talked a little bit about how he's really found his scoring touch. I mean, not just the fact that he's got over 20 goals on this team so far, but he's also found his playmaking side of the game. He's up now over 40 points through the course of the season, and he's a guy who's really developed very well. He spent his first full season with the Rapids last year, and now he's been named captain since the early stages of the season. And he's really kind of come into his own and developed greatly as a player here with the Rapids. And very excitingly, every time he goes out on that ice, you're confident that every time he gets close to the net, he's gonna score. It's so fun to watch him play. And again, just this week was no exception to that rule. I mean, a goal and 2 assists. He had 3 points during those 3 games. And it's not necessarily about the stats, it's about the quality of the plays. And when it comes to generating those chances in front of the net, especially like he does, that's what landed him that spot on the Rapids Heat Index this week. So this will probably not be the last time that we see him on here, but Jonah Laird, the captain, number 21 for the Grand Falls Rapids, gets this week's Rapids Heat Index Player of the Week. Now, before we end things off here, I want to pose a question to you. We've been doing this every week so far for the past couple of months during the season. My question of the game for this time is, which Rapids player or which Rapids trade deadline acquisition, rather, are you most excited to see? Personally, for me, I'm really excited to see the defenseman that came in. Anton Topolnitsky is one player who I've watched a lot in Charlottetown and is finally getting the opportunity to play here in Grand Falls. I'm very excited to see what he can do, and we're going to get our first look at how that's going to go tonight. But Until then, I want to know what your opinion is and who your most prized trade deadline acquisition you're looking forward to in seeing how they do for the rest of the season. And let me know in the comments below or on Facebook. Send me a direct message. Send any sort of comments, and I will share your answers to the questions on the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids post-game show tonight when we wrap up right after the game. With that being said, I'm going to go get ready for game day stuff. This is going to be a really fun game. I'm looking forward to it, and I know a lot of you are too. Get down to the rink early. We got some accuracy shooting going on, and there's going to be a lot of really fun activities to do as well right before the game. So you're going to want to be there for that as well. So many incredible fun intermission things planned as well. You're not going to want to miss any of it. With that being said, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell notification for all future content. And if you really like this video, don't forget to share it with all of your friends. And we will see you for the Bellefleur Tire Shop Grand Falls Rapids post-game show directly following the